Well, I was pretty popular last week. There you go. No applause necessary. Dear. Oh, dear. I have a watch here, but I told you in December I preach by calendar. You know that, huh? I'm a naughty boy, I know. We're looking at the Old Testament this morning for a few moments before I segue into something else. So I've shortened my sermon so I could talk longer. There's a paradox for you. Now, few of us have a Damascus Road experience of God like Saul did, who became Apostle Paul, en route to Damascus in Syria to persecute the Christians there. God's revelation to most of us seems to be more incremental. As God reveals God's self to us, so does our experience of God increase through people, situations, circumstances, private moments. In our lection this morning, the biblical picture of God and Abram's relationship is fairly straightforward. God speaks, Abraham listens. God promises, actually it's Abram at this point, God promises and Abram believes. God commands, Abram obeys. There comes a point, however, in this section of Scripture here where Abram finally says, wait a minute, God, I have a question. So Abram looks at his life and says, it is unclear to me, God, how you are going to work things out. There are some pretty big obstacles in the way. I'd like to have just a little more information. So up to this point, Abram did all that God requested without hesitation. At God's command, he left his own country to follow God. It went without asking any questions. And later, God directs him to go down into Egypt, and there he goes, and he prospers. And he leaves rich in cattle, silver, and gold. But Abram seems bold, courageous, obedient, humble, and faithful in all he does. But Abram has questions too. Abram, God says to him, do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward shall be very great. But this time, Abram does not respond with silent obedience. Instead, he says, I have a question. How can all of this be since I do not have a child? So the question is, can a person who questions also be a model of faith? Let's just take a second or two to look at the character of faithfulness. So often when people feel perplexing questions and they face these questions, or they feel the anxiety of doubt and uncertainty, or when they struggle with frustration and disappointment, they think of it as a crisis of faith. We are tempted to think of faith only as a questioning acceptance of silent submission. But as we follow Abram on his journey of faith, he clearly comes to the point where he challenges and questions God's claims. This kind of struggling with God can also be a part of our faith journey. I spoke with someone this week who mentioned to me how much they enjoyed the welcome that we read every week. Some feel we do that by rote, perhaps. It has its purpose. And this person said, I like especially where it says we welcome believers and questioners and questioning believers, and they felt that they probably fell somewhere in the last two categories. But they were most appreciative that the United Church of Canada was inclusive enough to be receptive to all, regardless where they were in their faith journey. Now, Lent offers us an opportunity to think about our discipleship in light of how others have lived in response to God's call and command. You'll notice in that scripture today that God instructed Abram to go out at night and look up into the heavens and look at all the stars. And he said, if all those stars, that represents how many descendants I'm going to give you. And his confidence in God was reckoned unto him as righteousness. Now I'm going to segue here. I want to read a portion of scripture from Psalms. And this is about creation. By awesome deeds you answer us with deliverance, O God of our salvation. You are the hope of all the ends of the earth and of the farthest seas. By your strength you establish the mountains. You silence the roaring of the seas, the roaring of their waves. You make the gateways of the morning and the evening shout for joy. You visit the earth and water it. You greatly enrich it. The river of God is full of water. You provide the people with grain, for so you have prepared it. You water its furrows abundantly, settling its ridges, softening it with showers, and blessing its growth. You crown the year with your bounty. Your wagon tracks overflow with richness. The pastures of the wilderness overflow. The hills gird themselves with joy. The meadows clothe themselves with flocks. The valleys deck themselves with grain. They shout and sing together for joy. The point I want to make here is this. And that is that creation has been entrusted to us as stewards. Stewards of this earth. Now, we've talked about faith and questioning and confidence. I want to talk about faith and action. There's an awful lot going on around us with respect to climate change. Are you aware of this young lady? Greta Thunberg. Now here's this young lady. Go on YouTube. She's on YouTube. 15 years of age. She decided she was going to go on strike every Friday in front of the Parliament of Stockholm, and there to protest about climate change. That's what she did. That's what that says there. School strike for climate. School strike for climate. Well, she's created quite a following. This past Friday, the 15th of March, there were over 2,000 demonstrations globally. Have you been following it? Over 2,000, okay? Sydney. 30,000 in the streets in Sydney alone. London. This is in Parliament Square. Tokyo. Montreal. In that photo, you can't see the end to those students who are out there marching. And right here. Now you look at that. We have a challenge before us that we cannot and must not ignore. And in reality, we are drowning in plastic. And that's not hyperbole. Bear with me here this morning. As of 2018, about 380 million tons of plastic is produced worldwide each year. Worldwide. From the 1950s up into 2018, an estimated 6.3 billion tons of plastic has been produced worldwide, of which 9% has been recycled, 12% has been incinerated, with the remainder going to landfills and the oceans. That's in Hawaii. We've got a problem. Now you just take a look at that. That young boy is salvaging what he can to eke out an existence, but he's floating in a sea of plastic. Plastic. Studies suggest that the bodies of 90% of seabirds contain plastic debris, and this is from Britain. By 2050, there'll be as much plastic, it'll weigh as much as the fish in the sea if it continues. We have a problem. Now, in our oceans, we have islands of debris. Okay? And you can see here, it's because of the currents that swirl and they collect a lot of this plastic, and they actually have created islands. And this is just the Pacific. The other oceans have islands as well. Some of these are as large as the state of Texas, or 3 times the size of France. Okay? We have a challenge before us. How long does it take these things to biodegrade? Look at this. And this is from Great Britain as well. A nappy is a diaper. I'm sure you know that. But look, fishing line, 600 years to biodegrade. A 6-pack beer holder, only 450. Plastic bottles and on it goes. Straws, 200 years. So. Now, Daniel, I'm looking at my watch. Daniel Webb lives in Margate, England. Okay? That's on the southern coast. One day he was out jogging, and he was appalled by what he saw along the coastline of all of the plastics that was washing up. Just tons of it. All kinds of it. He got inspired. He said, well, I wonder how much plastic I use in a year. How much do I use in a year? He set aside a room, and he started collecting plastic. And he collected in a year just under 5,000 pieces. Just under 5,000 pieces. And I'm trying to hurry here. Look at this. Now these are hula hoops. You know what hula hoops are? Not what you think. They're potato chips. But they're hula hoops in Britain, okay? And so what he did is that he gathered all of this and he created a mural. And there it is, on display for the world to see, in Dreamland in Margate. Installation art, I would suggest. Now, the EU is struggling with plastic, in particular straws. That seems to be where they're starting. If you're following the news, so are we. And the Ontario provincial government is looking at a ban on single-use plastics, and straws being primary among them. Now, a week ago Friday, I conducted a little experiment, okay? And this is about where we are. We're not quite on this map, but we're close, okay? We're over here somewhere. Okay, Smythe Road. Here we are. I went to Tim Hortons for a coffee. And I walked from the corner here all the way down to, it's right across from here. Timmy's is up in here, okay? And I said to myself, I wonder how many straws, or will I see any straws as I walk? Will I? I got my iPhone, okay? They can be handy. And so, that's not even half a block, okay? And so, this is what I found. Is that right? Yeah. How many's there? 24. I found 24 straws on the ground, in the snow, and who knows what's under the snow. That was my experiment. Now, here's my challenge for you, and I'm coming to the end here today. Here's my challenge for you. Hats off to the Church of England and our Episcopalian brothers and sisters south of the border. You know what they're doing for Lent? They're looking at how they can come to terms with single-use plastics. Single-use plastics. And no, we always talk about, what are you going to give up for Lent? Oh, I'll give up chocolate. Well, I never give up chocolate. Okay? All right, well, I've got a challenge. I've got a challenge for you. I'm going to have this printed out, or I can send this to you, but this is courtesy Tim Hortons. This, what I have in my hand. Are you looking here? Okay, what I have in my hand. Courtesy, okay? This is not a commercial, but here we go. What is this? It's a straw. Now, you can see here, you can, down near the bottom, you can pick up a metal straw. I am told, I haven't seen this, but either Burke's or Tiffany's, you can get a sterling silver one for $400 and carry it around with you if you want, but I wouldn't suggest that. But my challenge for you is this, and that is that if for the season of Lent, let's give these up. You don't really need one of these, do you? If you're in a fast food place and you're picking up a drink, you don't need to do that. You can take the lid off and drink like we normally do. I don't know whatever happened to sipper cups. I thought they were great. Now, so that's a challenge. And what I'm going to do during the rest of Lent, I'm going to talk to you from time to time about this, okay? Because I'm learning this online as I follow what is happening in other places. And we, as stewards of the earth, God's people, should be embracing this. If anybody is, we should be doing it. So it's amazing what people can do. And here's my last slide. That's a painting that my better half did. Okay? People power. Now what this is the Kyoto Accord march in 2006. And if you look closely here, you'll see this is the Council of Canadians. Now this is on Sussex Drive, and Deb wanted me to say that you have to look at the juxtaposition here of the people, because these, whoops, didn't want to go there. These are government buildings. It's amazing what people can do when they put their minds to it. And grassroots change is a real thing. And it can happen. It can happen. So I'm going to challenge you not only to give up straws, but please help me. Because I'm caught up in this too. We're all caught up in this. But come to me, email me, talk to me, call me. If you have a suggestion as to what we can do, oh my, with single-use plastics, how that, during the season of Lent we can give these up, then come talk to me. Mea culpa. Okay. God bless you all.